Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Dumb SEO Questions, episode 247. Each week we meet here to answer the questions asked on the SEO Questions community on Google+. Also on the Facebook group Dumb SEO Questions. You can also ask a question on the Twitter handle Dumb SEO QS. With us tonight we have David Rozam. David is a leading internet marketer situated in the south of England. He can be found at writingforseo.org. Masataki Wasa, back from Wimbledon, is webmaster of wasaweb.net. He's also a Google top contributor on the AdSense community. Rob Mars is an AdWords aficionado. He's a Google top contributor on the AdWords and Google Webmasters community. He is based in the Netherlands. Did I get the right groups this week, Rob? Oh, thank you. Sash Meyer is also a Google top contributor on the Google Webmasters community. He's currently based in Kent, I think, and
currently in Texas.
In Texas. Well, that's a state full of a bunch of Kents.
No, Texas is great.
All right, and it's good to see you here, Sash. Tim Capper is webmaster, or he's the owner of onlineownership.com. He's a conversion rate optimization specialist. He's proud to call himself an SEO. He is based in Corby, but we won't hold that against him. He is also a top contributor on the Google My Business community. And from Kansas in the USA, William Rock. William is an SEO and also a top contributor on the Google Web Search and Webmasters, I think, or just Web Search. Anyway.
Web Search and Google My Business Rising Star.
Okay. All right. So let's get this rolling. Our first question tonight is a question from Gregory Danschotter. He's looking for a log file analyzer and preferably free to test some websites. Any tool you can recommend? I've tried the free version of the log file analyzer from Screaming Frog. That works great, but is limited in the number of events.
They're all crap. I've built my own. Sorry. It's really as simple as that. So, no, I can't recommend anything because everything I've tried is seriously deficient.
Yeah, I wonder why. What would be the purpose? There's a lot of things for log files where you can get that you can't get from simple JavaScript with Google Analytics. But curious to figure out if he's already using Analytics, or he or she's already using Google Analytics, and if there's missing something that they're needing more of. Reason why for that log analyzer? Hard to tell.
One would assume that stats tracking has to be already in place. I mean,
yeah,
you know, this is 2017, not 1817. But I mean, yeah, the logs are critical and basically overlooked by almost everybody. It's one of those things. But unfortunately, the stuff that's out there is like I said, it's first of all, it tends to be hideously complicated to actually gain an overview of. It doesn't really tell you what you need to know, and it's actually in most cases, I would think, if you're dealing with anything but a small mom and pop site, it's actually worthwhile getting a hold of a developer and getting your own solution put together. It doesn't tend to be that time consuming or that expensive.
I used to, and Sash, quick question. I used to use logs a lot in the past. You know, we did that. That's the way we actually saw the analytic data. What are you gaining more? I mean, I'll be honest with you, I haven't used logs for quite some time because I've been spoiled with the dashboard and it gives me everything I need for what I'm doing for my job. What is the added benefit nowadays in 2017 that's, unless you're a huge e-commerce or travel site and stuff like that?
You don't even have to be a huge e-commerce site. You've just got to be a sort of a good size e-commerce site, and all of a sudden, the interaction data you actually gain, and the accuracy of that data, because you're always going to get slightly skewed figures on analytics or webmaster tool, well, search consoles, whatever they're calling it this week. So to actually have your log file data there for session lengths, paths, what have you, you get a much better picture of how the visitor interacts with your site. You know, and it works on top of and alongside the actual analytics or stack counter, whatever you happen to be using to actually track your site.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just dawned on me, Gregory, it depends on how friendly he is with his web host, because I just thought that Webalizer is out of the box in Linux CentOS. And that's another way. There's also a good analyzer from a company based in Israel. I just can't think of the name of it. But yes, you're so right.
If only there was this website where you can go to ask questions and get answers.
What's that?
I said, if only there was this website where you can go to ask questions and get answers.
Well, there is. It's called SEO Questions.com.
Oh, I thought you meant like Dogpile or DuckDuckGo or something.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
One other thing I wanted to mention is WebTrends is a company I used to use when I was doing log file analysis. I'm wondering if that's something you've tried as well, Sash.
Helps to unmute. No, I haven't.
It's expensive, isn't it, William? WebTrends?
It is very. It's not a cheap package, but it's basically one that I grew up with when we were doing AdWords even back in 2001, 2002. And I built my own server with WebTrends, and I was trying to remember the name of it earlier in the show. But yeah, WebTrends, it's definitely expensive, but now that, with Sash's interpretation of e-commerce and being able to see more data, that's got me interested in seeing what else I can see. So.
Okay.
Just the last thing as an example on the e-commerce side of things. For instance, analytics isn't real good at identifying, at least not without a bunch of configuration, where your conversion funnel breaks down and exactly why people are abandoning. That's much easier to diagnose if you know what you're looking at with log files and if you can take them apart.
Yeah. Well, I do most of my log file analysis in Notepad.
I used to. Absolutely. I mean, that's it. That's the way forward.
Okay, let's tweet that and we'll move on. All right, Jesus Sanchez Arnalda asked a question on photo advert linking. He said, hi, is it a good idea to try to give more power to a single page by putting a photo advert linking to that page in all of my posts side widgets? The goal that the visitors of my blog come to the conversion page. You can see the image below what I mean. The alt attribute of the advert image is the keyword I want to rank for. And sadly, the image is not showing up. I must have a glitch in our scraper tonight. But you can see it on the Dumb SEO Questions community on Google+.
We're gonna have a party like it's 1999. And on that note, I'm gonna get a coffee.
I think there's two parts to that question. I think, an advertisement to your landing page, or basically an advertising page to your location landing page that you want people to buy stuff from, probably a good thing. It's called action opportunity. But going at the second part of the question, wanting to be able to rank for a particular keyword, that's not going to have any favoritism by Google on that part, but it's going to be better for user experiences, then I would suggest do it, but not for SEO rankings. That's just my opinion.
I just direct Josu's attention to Rishi Lakhani's comment on the Dumb SEO Questions community the Dumb SEO Questions group on Facebook. But as he said, site-wide links get lowered in value. On-page anchor text links will do better. And what he means by that is to place another page on your site and link back to that page will be far more effective than putting the same link on every page of your site.
Yeah, and I think if it's an advertisement, it's kind of like a banner, but your own banner. So you can actually, just like you would see any other call to action in a blog, that's going to be on every other page. But going back to the ranking factor, I wouldn't be doing it for the ranking factor opportunity. But getting people to that destination to make that purchase, that's what we all do for lead generation to e-commerce.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next. Daniel Barbo asks the question, how to check how many pages are indexed by Google. He said, is the site operator the best way to check how many pages are indexed by Google? Is it more reliable than Google's Search Console? Is it normal that not all of the pages get indexed? What insights should I take from the fact that for a website, 211 URLs have been submitted and 206 have been indexed?
Boy, this is a quiet hangout.
Well, I'd probably go back on Search Console's got the right data. You have everything that you already need in there. So a site colon works great too, but I think focusing on not every single page is going to be indexed of your site too, and thinking, okay, maybe those leftover pages, what are those leftover pages that haven't been crawled, and are those high quality pages, or are they just maybe a tags page in your forum, or sorry, in your blog, or something that's not going to be useful for the experience of the visitor when they are on the search engine. Does that make sense? Good.
In most cases, I mean, you're talking privacy policies, cookie policies, login pages, stuff like that, which get left in by default and then not indexed by Google. Also, I mean, there's normally a mile-wide gap, or oftentimes a mile-wide gap between what the site colon operator shows and what's in Search Console. So it's kind of hard to actually gauge it. I tend to take my guidance from the site colon operator rather than taking what's being said in Search Console as blank fact. But I mean, if you've got 206 out of 211, that's nothing to worry about at all.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to the next. This one from Elise Adadam Ordu. How can you use Google Alert for SEO?
Well, so let's say you're in the genre of cars and you specialize in electric vehicles. So you would create a Google Alert for electric cars, Tesla, all sorts of kind of branded names or queries around that. And essentially, it would only alert you to something else that Google found around something that's, you know, come up or been published that Google's just found relating to any of those queries. So it doesn't essentially help you in terms of SEO, but it, in the long picture, it does, because it alerts you to anything that may be going on that you have missed that you certainly want to jump onto quickly, whether it be producing some kind of content around that, whether it be a new kind of product which you have a very similar one already to, whether you could then see, you know, whether you could capture the you know, basically capture that moment. It's also good, you know, if you're very quick to the mark of seeing something where only one person has published something around that, whether you could jump in quickly and you know, create your own kind of information on it, on the site, you know, with an extra YouTube vid. So you might add a video tutorial into something which the original one didn't have, where people are now going to quickly start searching, oh, how do I, you know, how do I change my electric cars? So it's very good in the sense that it keeps you abreast and up to date. However, what I've found in terms of a drawback, you know, the sheer mass amount of emails that you're getting. So eventually I switched to SEMrush. There's a thing in there called brand alerts, which is kind of like the same thing. You add in your keywords, and at least it's an external tool which I can log in on a daily basis, and it lists them all chronologically, rather than sending the alert to an email, and I might get 20 emails in a day, depending on how many alerts you've got going on. So it's good to keeping you up to date, but you need to use it. You know, you can't just like then in the past where you had like 30 emails in a day, and then at the end of the week you've logged in and you looked at them and thought, oh geez, look, I missed that one, or I missed that one. Yeah, so it's good to keep you abreast of what's going on, especially if you're not involved with a business on the day-to-day shop floor, if you know what I mean. And the marketplace is really good in keeping you informed of what's going on there. I'll give you a prime example. I'm just doing a little bit of work for a taxi company in Chester. I don't live in Chester. but one of these brand alerts, or basically a Google alert, alerted me to a little snippet that apparently Uber is going to be moving in there. So, which is a major threat to their business. So now we're going on the offensive, in the sense that although Uber's a massive company, we know they're recruiting, they haven't gone live. So now we're kind of building up a sort of a negative connotation towards Uber in the minds of people in Chester. So yeah, you can use it as an alert to really get in there. Occasionally, and I won't lie, occasionally you get some juicy bits, some great info on what's coming up, what's happening, and occasionally you may end up deleting all of them for an entire month before you get something that you look at it as like, wow, yeah, so it all depends on where you perceive the value.
Yeah.
Great point. I actually wanted to put one thing in there. I actually used Google Alerts a lot too, but like you said, Tim, the emails kind of get overwhelming. What I've actually done is started using Google News and just creating the topics I want to follow. And every morning I'm just going in and reading what I want to see, and just kind of customizing that experience back to, I don't have to get an alert just to get news. But SEMrush is also that tool that I've been playing around with as well. It's a pretty good tool. That's all.
Okay, Alicia, I hope that proves useful to you. Brand alerts on SEMrush. There's a free trial of SEMrush. I should also say that SEMrush gives many of the panelists on Dumb SEO Questions a Guru subscription gratis. All right, another question from Jesus Sanchez Analda. It's titled, "Will I lose page rank?" He said, "Is it a good idea to put a link on the main menu directing to your YouTube channel?" So the YouTube channel would be like a page more on the menu. The only disadvantage I see is that I think all of my pages will lose page rank.
We're gonna have a party like it's 1999. There's somebody who's seriously behind with his views on SEO here. I wouldn't really worry about losing page rank. The whole page rank sculpting and funneling and God knows what is so 20th century. I don't know how else to put this. Don't worry about it. If you want people to actually go and direct them to your YouTube channel, put the link there. If you're doing it for any other reason, don't put the link there. It's very simple. It's called common sense. I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit condescending here, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, but it's Dumb SEO Questions, and you are right.
Point taken. Point taken.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else with a quote for Josu?
I think it goes back to what Sash is talking about. It's user experience versus going after the sculpting. We used to do that a long time ago, but at the same time, if it's helpful for that user experience, go for it.
All right, let's move on to our next SEO question. And did I tweet that? I think I did. Oh, I'll try it again. I didn't. Good. All right, this one from Gareth Higgins. Does anyone want to be interviewed for SEO? So it's not a question. I left it up because I thought some people would be interested in it.
Yeah. You might not like the answers, but yes.
Anyway, we left that, and if anybody else is interested, it can be found on the Dumb SEO Questions community on, group on Facebook. Okay, let's move on to our next SEO question. I'll just tweak that. Ryan Callum. How will switching hosting providers and web content affect SEO? Two questions. One, building a new site for a client who has decent B+ SEO locally, when keeping current hosting but updating and changing the site entirely. How will this affect current SEO? And what can I do to retain as much of it as possible? Two, how will switching hosting providers and web content affect SEO?
My first question would have to be, what's wrong with the current hosting provider to make you move? Is there something particularly bad, or is it just like a price thing? Personally, I would not recommend updating the site and moving it at the same time. I would turn that into a two-stage process. Pick whichever one you're going to do first, but don't do it all at the same time. Don't just move it and then launch the same time at the new site as you're moving it. That can create real problems. Basically, in theory, nothing should go wrong, except with most site moves, something invariably does. And at that point in time, you can really find yourself in a hole.
Good thing, especially on when you're moving from server to server, the MySQL server may actually have a different configuration as well. So those are always more but like you said, Sasha, don't switch the site at the same time as moving hosting, because you don't know what other bugs might come. Switch the site first, move it over to a host, and then basically at that the changing point of the actual property, if you're moving from WordPress to, say, a Drupal or a Joomla, making sure that the 301s, or basically all the links that were there, are now going to the right proper location. That'll help you avoid a lot of the confusion the Googlebot will have as it's coming back and recrawling.
That's it. The other thing is, and this is something a couple of people have run into in recent times. Hosting providers like HostGator, for instance, will not give you a test bed for your site before you actually point the domain. So at that point in time, you have to physically repoint the domain before you can do anything with the hosting platform, and that's, to say that's suboptimal for a site move is a gross understatement. So one thing you need to actually really make sure is that you get some sort of test bed to actually deploy your new installation, to make things as seamless as humanly possible, because the last thing you need is to have to turn around and repoint all your DNS before you actually can physically launch or deploy anything. It's something a couple of surprisingly big clients of mine have actually run into in recent times, and it's frustrating and idiotic.
Yeah, I'd just like to throw in something that really hit home to me in the last couple of weeks. We recently put some effort and some client funds into improving an e-commerce site. and we got the page load down from 4.5 seconds to 2.1 seconds. Those 2 seconds, well, barring any other factors, and then when there's no other factors we can think of, since we got that site down on the 30th of June, so it's not even a month, and already visits to the shopping cart are up 62%. It's just amazing, and that 2 seconds could make so much of a difference.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you go ahead.
No, it's something that I've found. I'm working with a bunch of e-commerce sites these days, and load times make a ridiculous difference to abandonment. You know, there's one I'm fighting with right now where the server periodically throws a fit, and by periodically I'm talking about one in every 20 loads, and load times are okay, but all of a sudden, about 1 in every 20 loads, it goes completely gaga, and that the page can actually take over 20 seconds to load, and I haven't diagnosed it yet. It's extremely frustrating, but since that's been happening, the abandonment rate has gone through the roof, basically. You know, because nobody's going to sit around for that amount of time, for starters.
Yeah.
You know, and even if it's only 5% of the time, it makes a colossal difference to people.
Yeah. Oh, look, the other thing I wanted to point out to Ryan is that if he's building a new site, is the page structure going to change? Are the URLs going to be the same? He's upgrading the content, but is he going to try and match it to the existing URLs? Because that's a lot more effective than 301 redirecting the old URL to the new. And it's doable. You can just make a map at the server level and map the old pages, the pages you intend to publish to the old URLs, because more or less that they will match. Anyway, anybody else? Okay, let's tweet that and on to the next SEO question. This one from Blake Alot. Does anyone have any tips on increasing the crawl rate for a site? When I add a service page to my client's site, it gets indexed within the day, but for some reason, their blog posts take about 5 days to get crawled and indexed. Right now, the site is only 25 pages, and on average, Google crawls 3 pages a day. Is there anything I can do besides interlinking or site structure? Should I be submitting each new blog post to get crawled every time I publish one?
With a site that small, I mean, the best thing to do is when it depends on your posting volume, but if you just go into Search Console and go, you know, fetch as Google and submit to the index, things get done really quickly. You know, if you were talking about hundreds or thousands of pages, different story. But on the site of that scale, yeah, just do it manually in Search Console, I would say. That's the quickest way.
What about also a fetch and render? I wonder if there's anything going on with partially crawl or any errors in there.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, our next SEO question is also from Blake Alot. It's on the Google My Business messaging feature. Oh, it's not a question, it's a statement. I don't know how this one stayed here. I'll have to talk to Dan. He said, in case you haven't seen this, I just saw it a couple of minutes ago. You can turn on messaging so people who find your Google My Business can ask you questions. Tim Capper, I'm having difficulty following what Google has done with Google My Business and the pages and the plumbing. Is everybody else having the same trouble trying to figure it out? Or am it just me? I'm dumb.
Yeah, Jim. I think it just no. It's no. I mean, I think the dashboard's brilliant now. It's clear as day. Anyway, so look, this Blake is only in the US at the minute. Well, yeah, they haven't said which other countries they're running it out to, but if you're in the US, it's certainly there. Essentially, there's two things you've got to consider, and it does run you through it anyway. Firstly, message, if your phone number is a landline, it will only actually send messages, because this is text messages, yeah. So when someone on a mobile sees the messaging available on the mobile, they can click through to it. It opens up the thing, and they can essentially text message you. So your landline has to be able to accept text messaging, and I think it auto detects. It may or may not, but I think it auto detects whether that's possible. But you must be able to obviously accept text messages, and obviously if the phone number attached is a mobile, well, then that's fine anyway. You can turn it on or off, because the last thing you want, I don't know if you want text messages at 2 in the morning, but you know, that's entirely up to you. And the other thing is, I don't know, depending on what industry your client is in, you must also be aware of you know, the laws that surround the industry. You know, some things you must remember, you have to keep depending on what business or industry, you know, you need to keep a record of all electronic information that's passed to and forward, and this would probably fall under, you know, like your emails or things like that. So just be aware of that. Yeah, you know, it all depends. Speak to your client. Do they want it, if and are, you know, do they want it on all the time, or do they want to turn it on and off themselves? This is the point. I doubt, if you're like a florist, that people would be daft enough to like send a message at 2 in the morning, but you know, test it out, see. That's the best thing you can do. Turn it on, you know, speak to your clients. If they want to give it a shot, test it out. You know, it's as simple as that. I know when Google incorporated Hangout Chat, that was a bit of an issue, because because obviously as a manager on a lot of these things, and especially on hotels, my phone would be going at all different times, day and night, with Hangout messages from people asking, is the spa open, or what time does the restaurant open? And I'm like, so yeah, look, the thing is, you just need to test it out, man, and see how it goes.
Okay, anybody else on this one? Okay, let's go to the next SEO question from Sam Minton. On the old way of doing SEO by spamming Google. Hello, he said, I'm a web designer, developer, and rather new to SEO. I've been charged with redesigning the website for a branding design agency, which he gives the URL to, sync.com, which feels to me very over bloated. For example, on the expertise page, there are links to pages that briefly describe all the different type of content we create. See the photo attached. This is the demand of the company's SEO experts, claiming that these are all entry pages that help with the site's ranking. My question is, are these pages really necessary in helping with the website's ranking? I don't see any other design agency doing this sort of thing. To me, it feels like a very old way of doing SEO by spamming Google with all the possible keywords that we can give it, especially considering that some of these pages have very little content on them. Being the kind of minimalist person with a less is more attitude, I would like to get rid of these pages, or at least regroup some of them if at all possible. Thanks for any help you might have.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna flip this on to the other side there, Sam. Firstly, yeah, you know, I've worked with design agencies in the past, and literally all you've got is some nice images, a few little cloud kind of, wow, look at us, we're fantastic, and they expect that to engage. Whilst it might be engaging once you've got the person onto the site, the first part is how do we get people to the site from the search results? Because if you've only got a site which has got, you know, a couple of case studies and some pictures of your, you know, your design or your branding that you've done, you essentially have really little or nothing. So you should be you know, creating content around what your user, your potential customer, so that SEO agency you've described has kind of gone in the right direction. Or when you said there's literally nothing on the page, well, that's potentially an issue there, because one is probably not doing very well in search, so therefore it's pretty much useless. But you know, if you look at the actual idea about it, so you might be a design agency, you might have a couple of case studies, but you might want to target, for example, you've just created a new section there, and you I don't know, you want to do graphic design for billboards. You've just bought a massive DNC machine, and you can now screen print like 60-foot billboards. But you know, you might have a section on your site saying, you know, billboard design, and just great images, you know, and very quirky, cool, funky, but you've literally got nothing on there. So essentially, yes, you need to actually go out there and see, well, who's looking for billboards? How can I satisfy their intent? What do they want to do? So, you know, boom, we're looking at, you know, how billboards may be old school, but they work, and, you know, provide some really great in-depth, almost converting the customer, even though you're not selling the billboard, but you're doing the design behind it, but you're actually providing the information to these people about, wow, how a billboard is actually going to, you know, creates better conversion and return on investment to a business. And you create some really great, you know, what these people want to read and see. And at the end of it, it's like, hey, you know, we've given you all this info, we've actually converted you on the sale of it. We don't sell them, but you know, we will design and brand these things. So it's about understanding what your users want and provide the content on what they're possibly searching for, because 99% of the time, someone's not going to just be searching design agency. They will invariably, you know, searchers and users over the last 20 years of being online have evolved. And especially also, if you think about, you know, if people are using home, you know, speech device, so Google Home and Alexa and all, they're actually using their physical words. So people have evolved into not just typing brand design. They might firstly specify a location. So of course, if you haven't got your local tied into it, you may be missing a trick there. So they might then move on to, you know, design agency London. And then when they see that there's way too many there and they actually don't want to bother going through that, they may even narrow the focus down to billboard design agency London. And then when they've narrowed the field down to exactly what they're looking for, then they may even search something else. But the point is to understand the user and to provide information to the user. So yes, this company's gone in the right, this SEO has gone in the right direction, but they fail to actually then really follow through with it, with any in-depth and relevant stuff. When you said it's just thin, crappy content. Yeah, so you need to kind of, I get where you're coming from in terms of, you know, less is more, but unfortunately to Google, less is less, in the sense that unless you unless you have got, you know, unless you've got, for some reason, you know, you did the design for some major celebrity and that was tweeted, and you know, unless you are a household name and you know people have linked to you and Google kind of understands that literally this guy is the best design agency out there, and you have just miraculously developed all these links over time and blah blah blah, essentially you're not really going to feature anywhere with just a really slick looking site that's got a few buzz phrases and a couple of bits in it. You're not really going to get very far, unfortunately. Google needs information to understand and read, to understand what you are about. Ultimately, when people, you know, and obviously you get out there and online and, you know, other external marketing, you're building up a reputation and people start talking about you, then at that point, you know, kind of Google's got a really good idea about who you are and what you do. But until then, to provide something to Google to understand, physically understand. They don't understand pictures very well in terms of who you are, what you do, or what you provide. And they're not really going to get a great little buzz phrase, quirky thing on a page. They're just not going to get it. It's still physically words, in other words. But use those words to engage with the consumer on what they're looking for and what they're actually searching for.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right. So Sam mentioned, I hope you find that valuable. And let's move on to the next SEO question from Mohammed Islam Unali. Which schema markup should I use? Doesn't matter, Mohammed. He said, I have a website like this one, and he gives the URL 10beasts.com. Which schema markup should I use is the question that Mohammed asks.
Okay, let's see here. So this is product. Okay, so on this, so this is also reviews, but I can't. I've just clicked onto the one page about. Oh, okay, so. Right. Okay, so to no, to that. Huh? I don't understand what the site does.
The site is actually poorly written reviews. It attempts, in fact, it almost has an automatically spun feel to it. You know, there's definitely a content spinner involved here. There's nothing even remotely original about it. I'm not entirely sure And actually looking at this, yeah, it's running AdSense. I'm guessing this is just a made for AdSense review spinner. And maybe even a review republisher, I don't know. But I mean, there's nothing here. Schema markup isn't going to help this, because this is duplication and poor and low quality content.
Yeah, and it just creates one mega freaking page. And then when you actually want to click through to what you think is the product, it takes you then to an affiliate AdSense.
What's that?
Yeah. So, right. I mean, if you say like this, well, then, yeah, I mean, just forget about it, mate. Just, yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can really do. But let's say, for example, I've gone into the best wireless routers page. Now, let's say, for example, I'm looking at the first one, the TP-Link Talon AD72000, right? So let's assume this doesn't take me to an affiliate page. Let's say it takes me to the actual product within the site, in theory. Yeah. If it took me to an actual product page within the site where you then detail it, you know, go through it in detail, et cetera, the markup there you would use would be product. You know, and you know, that's quite extensive depending on what you want to provide. So you could use obviously the name, you could use product serial numbers, you could, you know, there's a lot of stuff you can mark up on it within product itself. You can put a lot of text back in, but that depends on what you've added into your site. If there were actual on-site reviews that people were reviewing that product on that specific page, then you could use aggregated review markup on that specific section. But this is not pulling from external sources. You have to be on, it has to be on-page reviews, right? You could incorporate that. For the overall site itself, nothing really. I mean, the only thing you could use would just be the top level organization markup, and the only thing you could add then would be your social media, you know, social media same as into that bit. But apart from that, if it's the same structure as this, nothing. But if you then define it to actually provide product info and on-page reviews for the product, then you know, you could add to that.
Mr. Tim, I suspect you've just added to the sum total of Schema spam online.
Oh.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on. Next SEO question from Jonathan Maynard. What is the best way to organize a multi-website? Jonathan said, hello, folks. Small question, small answer here. What is the best way to organize a multi-website? We have a client who owns 2 spas, and they did 2 different subdomains on WordPress for each spa. Then they have a blog which is related to each of these subdomains. How should we construct sitemaps and SEO for this kind of website? Any particular things to know? Many thanks for answers.
Personally, for me, Jonathan, if you can, you know, I really hate, look, I doubt these are massive, so I don't know why they went down the road of subdomains.
That was going to be my
absolutely
question.
freaking hate them. It's just, you know, if these were 2 spas, yeah, one might be on the top of the country and one might be 1,000 miles away. It doesn't matter. You know, the overall thing then is a spa. So your overall site would, you know, would be the brand name of a spa. I'm assuming they are the same brand name. And then you would have your locations where people could click into that specific spa and that specific location. And depending on what that spa offered in each different location, you would then build up in that, but not necessarily not in subdomains. So then you've consolidated everything into one site, and one site that can be clearly understood and works together and benefits each other. And then, of course, your blog is working. Your blog, you can either segment it by category if you wanted to for, but your overall kind of stuff, like I don't know, latest facial massaging techniques or whatever, it would benefit the overall site because both of them would do it. And you're talking about the latest benefits of this facial massage with centipedes, millipedes walking all over your face, and it's the latest rage coming out of Thailand, and we've imported like the fastest walking millipedes just to massage your gorgeous little face. Then, of course, if you've got any localized information, then you could obviously have that localized, because maybe that these great millipedes don't actually work very well in a hot climate, but they work on the northern spa very well, and because it's so cold, they run so fast in your face. You could do a more localized spin on that. And of course, if any localized, cross-marketing, if you're doing a spa and a meal deal or something like that, a pre-theater thing, or a day out to play golf, and the husband goes to play golf whilst the wife goes to has a spa. I think that would be perfect for the more localized blog as opposed to the whole thing. But in essence, you've got one site which has a greater overall, I don't like to use the word authority, but has a greater overall understanding in terms of the spa, what's offered, and the brand, than all these little subdomains. If you can't change that, then you treat each subdomain essentially, each subdomain is going to need to go into your search console. Sitemaps, yes, definitely for each, that would need to go into search console. You could interlink the two, like footer. In the footer, you would have one saying X location, Y location, so people can just switch between, or you could have a location tab in your main navigation. But apart from that, I would convince them to go TLD on this, man. I hate subdomains.
No, absolutely. For something like this, there's no mileage, and like you said, I mean, we're both assuming that it's the same brand. That being the case, absolutely no question about it. The only thing would be if one is the spa and the council estate, and the other one in the grounds of Balmoral Castle, then you don't really want them together. But other than that, no.
Would you guys humour an old bloke and let me just to clear something from my misty head? The two subdomains. I mean, they've got like two spas, each with a feeder radius of about 100 k's each. Aren't there local benefits by having a separate site for each item? No local benefits. I see you shaking your head.
I would have said locally, you're going to go down the local route, not necessarily with separate websites. There's other ways it means.
Okay. All right. Let's call that an answer for Jonathan. I hope you find it useful. And let's move on to the next SEO question from Zia Al-Haq Abdul Aziz. I think he just added that just to put me through it. Can you explain Web 2, please? I like Paddy Mentelin's answer.
Totally.
All right, let's move on from that. We won't bother tweeting that. It hardly adds much to the knowledge of the universe. This one from Josu Sanchez Anelda. He thinks it's probably the dumbest SEO question of the week, but that was me a minute ago, wasn't it? He said, that's probably the dumbest SEO question of the week. Can you make different webs about the same topic, located in different servers, so you could rank them all individually, and eventually they could be all of them on the first page? And you would take that page for yourself completely. Is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. I'm facing it right now with one of my main clients' competitors, which have launched, to all intents and purposes, 6 or 7 different businesses, all doing the same thing. They've gotten their wives and cousins and God knows what involved. It's all centralized around one main core business, but they are fighting very, very hard to take currently 6 or 7 of the top spots. They've got a very dubious SEO working on it, but yes, it's absolutely possible. No question about that. Google will let you get away with it. Say that out loud, or did I just think that?
So the thing is, yeah, and like Josu, you seem to be asking more kind of black hat questions.
Absolutely.
Week in, week out, and I know you're new to that, and you know it's great you're asking questions, but long blogs, man. I really do, because each week you're asking more and more dubious questions. Yes, look, the one thing you need to consider here is, as Sash said, yes, this is possible. But the situation here is, look at the cost of this to do it properly, right? And if you were going to build out 5 separate sites, that's obviously, you know, 5 separate sites, you've got the copywriter, or unless you do it, but if you're going to be doing it, the thing that you're going to run into is, by the time you've got to the 2nd site or the 3rd site, you literally writing the same stuff, and ultimately, you know, you're literally trying to just spin the same stuff over and over again about, you know, because it's the same business. So essentially you would want copywriters involved, properly structured. You probably want to build in some kind of local thing, so then you're still going to start getting a bit dodgy in the terms of phone numbers and locations of the so-called businesses. So that gets a little bit dodgy there. And then, of course, you still need to build up content. You still need to build up an online presence, whether that is even just basic social media. It's kind of just a basic social media presence for these businesses. You're still trying to manage 5, if it's just Facebook, that, you know, five Facebook channels. And if you add a business page into that, or you add I don't know, Twitter into that, you add another 5 there that you've got to manage, and just think about the time and effort. And if you want to create just a little piece of content on a blog or something, an update or whatever, that's 5 different versions. Just think about the time, effort, and money that you could have taken from all of that crap, put into one site, which would be freaking awesome.
That was going to be the other half of my point, because the outfit I'm talking about, they must have a family the size of an 18th century Mormon, a 19th century Mormon clan, because they've got everyone involved and they're just throwing everything at it. If you're just doing this by yourself, good luck.
Okay, let's move on. Next SEO question from Neil Cheeseman. Why isn't fetch and render working? He said, "Hi, I have posted this on the Google Webmaster Forum, but if it is okay, I'm also posting here as I'm pulling my hair out with it, what's left of it." Okay, the scenario is this in Google. Yes, Seth, we want to say something? No? Okay.
No, I just laughed.
Okay. Well, okay. The scenario is in Google Search Console, Webmaster Tools. The website with fetch and render is temporarily unreachable all the time, i.e. it is permanent on CSS, JS, and images disabled all plugins, changed theme to WordPress, created WordPress page with no content on it. Fetch and render still shows temporarily unreachable with CSS and JS. If I fetch and render one of the listed ones, WordPress CSS, it shows as complete. The website. And the website also shows as being not mobile friendly on Google Mobile Friendly Tester. Hosted on SiteGround, the techie support can see nothing in htaccess or robots text. Website 2, different language version on the same server as net on domain to the first domain with the same theme used, and most plugins are the same as the first. Website fetch and render shows complete, mobile friendly. Yes. I'm not going to say anymore. He's got enough. Who wants to answer this?
With WordPress, the watchword here would be running most of the same plugins. There may well be something there that's getting in the way. I would turn around and look to my fences in as much as taking the plugins that are not on the site that's doing well and disabling them a second and seeing what happens. If that is at all an option and it's not going to break the site to pieces, that would be my first port of call as far as diagnosing this is concerned.
Yep.
And I'm guessing nobody else has anything to put in.
Well,
right. Okay. There's. Can you just post the URL into chat?
Yeah,
We got both of them.
Yeah. There's one of them anyway.
Let me have a look at something a second. Doobie-doobie-doo.
You sound like somebody I know, so you picked up that language from them.
Server issues. There we go. That's one. I'm just going to run this through a different mobile lead checker, and we'll see what happens. This may take a few minutes. Talk amongst yourselves while I do this.
Looking at the robots text for findpetportraits.co.uk, I know we've discussed this before, and it does test okay, but it's user agent :***. In other words, all user agents disallow WP admin. I'm not sure that defaults to allow everything else. I'd like to see a line in there with disallow nothing, following that disallow WP admin. And that, you know, it could be that the fetch and render has a stricter evaluation of the robot's text than the Googlebot's interpretation of robots text.
Well, everything I'm seeing here for that site is checking out just fine.
Yeah, and I've got one somewhere like that with WordPress right now, where it's actually not being, the sitemap is actually having issues crawling, but at the same time there's there's nothing being blocked by, or nothing blocking the robot sticks in my case. But in what we're looking right now is I'd probably be curious about his htaccess file. I think he mentioned that in his comments there, or his question. But there might be something such as a security tool or something else kind of blocking it possibly in there, or having issues. I'm not quite sure. I'm looking more into his site.
Okay. All right. I hope it wouldn't actually no, because Neil has suffered a long time with this site. It'd be nice to find a solution for him. Does anybody have anything to add on this?
Yeah, get both of the URLs to me, and I'll see what's what. If I've only got one, I mean, I don't know whether I'm looking at the one that doesn't work and it's working for me, or whether I'm looking at the one that does work as it's supposed to. So if he can, I mean, we used to be connected on Google Plus. If he can drop me a private message, I'll take a look.
Can you still do a private message on Google Plus?
Well, absolutely. Google Plus is a far superior platform to Facebook. In fact, it is not at all the ghost. Oh, sorry, I'm lapsing into body line.
But seriously, have you tried to send a private message or a message to a circle of friends on Google Plus lately?
I have messaged individual people. I haven't messaged circles, because mainly that now all revolves around communities.
Yeah.
Why? What's wrong with the circle? With the circle messaging? What happens?
Well, if I wanted to do one now, I don't think I'd be able to. In fact, I'm sure I wouldn't be able to.
Oh.
I mean, they've taken useful functionality and thrown it away. If I want to, say, send a message, let me see, I've got Google Plus open now. I want to send a message to Sash, let me see. Okay, you I find this time, yeah, and I can send you a message, okay. The other day I tried to do this and couldn't. Anyway, so if I'm trying to send you a private message,
you should have a private message from me now.
Let me see, Sash. Yes, I got it. Yes.
No, they haven't taken the functionality away, but they've really cleverly hidden it.
Yeah, and what's the point of that?
I mean, it actually took me a while to figure out how to do it with the way they've changed the interface, but their development teams will do whatever it takes to justify their own existence. Oh man, did I say that out loud, or did I just think it? I'm not a very good TC, am I?
I said today on Google Plus, if only Vic Gondotra would come back and fix it all. I got 8+1s. Normally I'd get 100.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd have +1'd it.
But that's the point, isn't it? They're closely allied on Google Plus, and you don't see my posts anymore. They've deliberately dumbed it down.
They have.
I don't know why.
You're quite correct. I mean, it used to be. Well, I mean, I guess that's not what we're talking about, but yeah, no, it used to be so much more than it is now. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next. It's number 16. Now, this is a great question. Ted Rinshead asks, what's the best way to optimize Google Maps and to get Google Maps citations? Thanks in advance. Does anyone have a link to some free resources on Google Maps optimization?
Okay, so we kind of need to define what you mean by Google Maps, because you can't actually optimize, in a sense, Google Maps itself, because that's Google's site. Do you mean your business page within Google Maps? And do you mean citations for your business? So from a base point of, let's assume you're talking actually about Google Maps itself, you can't really optimize it. However, you can utilize a few things within it quite well, which would help in your, in your visibility. So, for example, if I'm working with a hotel in Phuket, Thailand, and we're looking at a guide for their customers about what's going on, festival events, or let's just say, temples to visit. You can actually create a Google map, and you can then list, you have an overview, which gives you a title, and you can create a little introduction, and you can also say created by, and you can put your URL in, link it back to the actual information resource page, or if you wanted just to your main site or to your local page. And then you go and create an actual map with all the different, temples and blah, 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 blah. Then you can push that to publish to anyone on the web, and then you can embed that on the resource page within the website. Now, these actually do rank. So when somebody is searching for things like, Phuket temples, that actual map will actually rank, depending. And if it gets to page one, it really does depend on the competitive nature around that actual, or not really competitive. If there's a lot of stuff on there, you may not hit page one, but you will see that there are a lot of people that, depending on the quality of it and what it is, you do get a lot of visits coming from it to the actual thing. But that is more of a resource. You're not actually using that as a kind of a ranking thing. It's more of a resource to add value. You can't really create, if you're looking at citations, some of the better known, directories out there will allow you to actually embed your exact map, your exact actual map location from Google. They pull it through, but not many do. They just create their own little map based upon the address that you've submitted. So certainly make sure that is correct. Yeah, so if you could just define what you mean by Google Maps optimization, whether you're actually talking about Google Maps itself or, your business listing within Maps, then that would be slightly better to understand.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else? Well, I think that's a brilliant answer. Anyway, let's let me tweak that, and let's click this button. Oh, it's that time again. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.
Actually,
Yes.
Jim.
Yes, Tim.
Just going back to, I think his name was Ted's question. So if you search Chiang Mai walking to a map, there's a fair few things going on there. The original article that was done for one of the hotels is position 2, and the map created as a resource within that article is at position 6. So yeah, you know, it does work, but think of it more as a resource, but not as a I'm going to, like, you know, create spam maps all over the place and attempt to rank for different things. Anyway, that's it.
Fair enough. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we have reached the end of our tether, and that's it for another week. Thank you for watching. We appreciate your interest. Your interest in what we do makes what we do worthwhile. And for that, we thank you most sincerely. We'll be back at the same time next week to do this all again.